Comrade Happiness Uduk, who is the Zonal Coordinator, Calabar Zone of ASUU. And then today we want to have a talk on education, but because of time, we'll just take a short take. I'll just give us some questions so that I'll be able to introduce distinguished Professor Hilary Young, who is waiting for us to join us in Abuja. I'm sure he's online watching us now. I'm going to bring him on at the appropriate time. And first of all, you are in the education sector, and you cannot be here without just saying a word, even in 1 minute, about your partners in progress, federal government and ASUU. What's your relationship like as we speak?
Well, our relationship with the various governments over time haven't been very, very impressive because we've had the misfortune, so to say, of having several governments that are not very concerned about what happens to the education sector. And Nigeria is one country that's doing very poorly. Even if we want to talk about its other African contemporaries, it's doing very poorly. We seem to have the lowest budgetary allocation for education. I know that as far as the African Union is concerned, they actually have a threshold which is, I think, 26% or so, but Nigeria is yet to even reach up to 10%. Consistently, I think we're around 6-7%.
Sometimes 3%.
Sometimes 3%. And sometimes, you know, strikes need to come for some of those releases to be made. So it's not actually been very cordial on the part of government. The union has done quite a bit, you know, to ensure that public tertiary institutions stay afloat. I can tell us, not out of pride, but with a sense of humility, that if ASUU were not in the picture, we would have public tertiary institutions would have become like public primary schools and public secondary schools.
Now, before we come back home, talking about policies, public policies that affect tertiary institutions. There is the National Tax Reform Bill at the National Assembly, and it is raising so much controversies, even among leaders, even within the ruling party, and even the Vice President has taken a different position from what the President is saying through the National Economic Council where he chairs. And then I overheard something, that if the new tax policy is implemented, it's going to affect the tertiary education trust fund, TETFund. Now, because of time, I know you have your way with words. Tell us, what has ASUU discovered, if not ASUU as a group, you as a leader discovered, what will be the impact of the policy on TETFund, and what has been the usefulness of TETFund over the years?
Well, I think that everybody who has eyes, you know, anybody who's not challenged as far as sight is concerned, would see that in public tertiary institutions, whether federal or state, you know, that it would see the presence of TETFund, whether through TETFund directly or what we refer to as needs assessment. I know that historically we lay claim to the fact that TETFund is the brainchild of ASUU. It began as I think ETF, Education Trust Fund, and then in 2011 there was this bill, you know, that turned it into TETFund, because we found out that primary schools were coming there to draw funds, secondary schools were coming there to draw funds, even when they have budgetary allocations made for them. So it had to be specifically tailored towards tertiary education. That's why it was renamed TETFund in 2011. I know that what happened was that a state of emergency was declared, I think in the late 1990s, where ASUU and the federal government met. We had protracted strike action, and ASUU said, we can tell you how to get out of this quagmire, how to address this. And there was that agreement between government and ASUU, and we said, okay, companies that do business in Nigeria, when they pay tax, you can keep some percentages. It began some percentage. It began with 2%, then increased to 2.5%. Then in 2023, it increased to 3%. So those monies are kept aside so that tertiary institutions could draw from the pool and ensure that they have various things. TETFund sponsors infrastructure, TETFund sponsors collaborations, TETFund sponsors training of staff, whether teaching or non-teaching staff. So we really cannot cannot overemphasize what the usefulness of TETFund has been. But with this new tax regime that the government, or tax bill that government is trying to, make sure that the National Assembly, pushes into law.
Yes.
What we hear is that TETFund would be sponsored up to 2025. After that, it will be scrapped.
What?
That will not. Yeah, that would not. It will be substituted with this NELFund. Is it NELFund they call it?
So how would NELFund be funded? And
we do, and sometimes we try to imagine how the minds of our leaders work, how their minds work, because no country has developed without the education sector being looked at. So that's why our union even has come up with something to say we can't stand to see this happen, and we're challenging this very seriously. Our appeal is that Nigerians should join us in ensuring that this fight, that the government is stopped from passing that bill into law.
Now, what is the NELFund?
You see, I have this bias as regards this student's loan, so I'm not actually interested in knowing what it means. But it has something to do with the
Prof.
Yes, sir.
You mean a dedicated fund which has been used for infrastructural development in universities will be replaced by a fund that government is supposed to use to do funding of students' loans?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we hear they're going to do. And you know what? You see, I worry about our country. I try to imagine where we're going to be in the next how many years if we allow some of these things to take place. But ASUU can just do the bits that it can. You can simply push. If we don't have the support of other citizens, then we may really have issues with that. So they want to scrap that and not fund TETFund anymore, but actually now pull in the funds to ensure that students get this loan.
Okay, I think what we will do is that we need to hype this very development to the point where the world will get to know the truth to be able to make sure that TETFund is not scrapped.
TETFund shouldn't be scrapped though, because that's what is being used to train both teaching and non-teaching staff of universities. That's what is used in building hostels, laboratories, staff offices. This is what is being used to equip these places as well. And you know what? Even private institutions are clamoring to benefit from this.
Absolutely. Okay, let's do this. I have distinguished Professor Hilarian online. Before I bring him on, I want to just have a take back home. There was the Akwa Ibom Strategic Education Roadmap as a master plan for the education sector, which came on board after the Education Summit, and distinguished Professor Hilarian was made the chairman with quite a number of very brilliant Akwa Ibomites. And from an insider perspective, are you aware that that very plan has not been implemented? And what would you say as your recommendation to government as an expert?
Well, I know that saner climes, they thrive by having policies and ensuring that those policies are implemented. We've not had that luck of having people lead us who are concerned with policies and implementation of policies. Nigeria is said to be a country where we have so many policies, but those implementing the policies
is a problem.
My advice would be, there is that roadmap. Let our government follow that roadmap, because the writers, those who charted that path and that course, they were experts. They knew what they were doing, and if we follow that, I tell you that we would progress in the manner that would shock us, because anybody that has its people educated usually goes far.
Absolutely. Associate Professor Happiness Uduk has strongly recommended the implementation of the Akwa Ibom Strategic Education Roadmap AKSER 2020 to 2030, because we cannot have a plan, we cannot have a map, a roadmap, and then we drop in the dark.
In the dark.
It's unthinkable.
No.
There's something wrong somewhere.
It's madness.
Yes.
To have something that can guide you, a compass, yet you don't want to follow the compass. It means you will group in the dark for quite a while.
Absolutely.
You group there for a while.
Yeah, Professor Happiness Uduk, your parting shot.
Thank you very much, MKO. I'd like to say that we shouldn't get tired. We should continue to harness all we have. Keep talking. Certainly they'll listen.
Thank you so much. We keep talking.